Recording in progress.
Motion sensor.
Mr. May, can you please mute your mic? Thank you.
Good evening, colleagues and officials and everybody on the platform. Miss Valerie, can you just assist me that are we all on the platform, especially the members of the portfolio committee, and then we may start. I'm not suggesting that you need to wait for them, just a confirmation, please.
Chair, there are 9 members, including yourself, from the Portfolio Committee on Transport present.
Okay. No, thank you very much. And good evening, colleagues and our invited colleagues from other spheres of government. You are most welcome. And I would like to start by saying that, to start by doing the roll call in terms of whom are we expecting to be in attendance. And indeed, we have received some couple of apologies and the other ones have been withdrawn. We were expecting the Department of Transport led by the Minister, Honorable Minister Cindy Chikunga. As well, we have also invited the City of Cape Town through the Honorable Mayor, as well as the provincial government that is responsible for mobility portfolio. And the rest are members and any other member of all these three spheres of government who had an interest to attend. We are all welcome. Okay. We are all welcome, and thank you very much, honorable members, for your attendance. Allow me just for 1 second to sort out my visibility. I'm told that my picture, I'm a little bit like in the dark. If you may give me that chance so that we can proceed, and my apology once more for that. My apology, I hope now my picture is a little bit better. I guess so. My apology once more. May I formally take this opportunity to declare this meeting opened, and thank you very much for your attendance. I have earlier on, before I distracted myself, to deal with the roll call in terms of whom is expected to this meeting. Allow me, colleagues, to go through the apologies that our office had received, which we highly appreciate that everybody that we have written to took upon herself or himself to respond formally, and we are not taking for granted that cooperative governance at its play. We have received an apology from the Honorable Mayor of the City of Cape Town, Honorable Hill Lewis, as well as the Honorable Deputy Minister of Transport, Mr. Manu, Honorable Manu, Minister Cele of Police, whom we have extended our invite to him as well. He has apologized. Honorable Gaffa, it's a Councillor, Honorable Councillor Gaffa, MCM for Safety Security in the City of Cape Town. Those are the three apologies, because Honorable Hensinger has withdrawn his apology. He's in attendance. With that, honorable members and colleagues, allow me to check with the secretary if there are any other apologies without repeating what I've just spoken to. If you can register those apologies, Ms. Valerie.
Okay, I'm not sure if you also mentioned the apology from Alderman Smith, but that was the only ones that we've received that I've indicated to you earlier.
Oh, Honorable Smith from where?
Alderman Smith from the City of Cape Town.
Oh, no, I've got it. It's just that I omitted it. No, you're quite right. Thank you so much. With that, we'll take it as all those apologies and of course they did have reasons when they were forwarded to us, are accepted by the meeting. We must say that the purpose of today's meeting, as the letters would have also indicated, and even the agenda, is that we would like to get a briefing from the department on the SANTACO Taxi Strike and the conditions for the suspension of the strike and the way forward, as it were. However, we must register that the City of Cape Town and the mobility of Western Cape, we have extended an invite and requested them as well to take us into their confidence. Not that we want to make anyone to account, but we want, as the lawmakers, as the oversighting body, to have a better understanding when we have, if we get asked, we are able also to say, these are the issues, these are the sequence of event, and what platform or legal platform or base or foundation that has been used, and where did we miss each other between us as the City of Cape Town as well as the taxi industry, as it were, which is one of the business sectors in our country. However, we felt that those two spheres of government must also make a presentation to us, and then we will then request the department. We are not saying, I'll repeat this, we are not here to make anyone to point fingers at fault, but to say, how do we best, after we would have been taken to confidence in terms of the sequence of events, and it's what informs those sequence of events, as then get a presentation from the department, which is led by the minister, and then we will engage. But in terms of us having a final conclusion in terms of the recommendations, I will suggest, honorable members, we get our space and time outside the presenters so that we can then reflect and say, this is the role that we need to play. We have invited the Minister of Police so that also he can listen to the formal presentation, which is done before Parliament, so that if we think as the committee after this meeting, there is something in the role that we think moving forward to ensure that the repeat doesn't repeat itself, of which we're looking for a better way to term it as a taxi strike, but probably could be the application of the law. And we will find after this meeting to term it and give it a better terminology. And I trust, honorable members, that you'll find that approach in order. I will see by show of hand, Honorable Ramadwa. And
Good evening.
Hansinger, as you follow each other, if you may. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, Honorable Chairperson. Allow me to greet everybody who is in the platform. Honorable Chairperson, I would like to support your suggestion, because in the agenda it's not written that the City of Cape Town and the province mobility section will make presentation. So I would like to support that they make a presentation, because the conflict or taxi strike industry, taxi strike was between the City of Cape Town and the taxi industry. So it's proper that they make a presentation. Secondly, I also like to support what you have suggested, the issue of having reflection as a portfolio committee outside this meeting. In that note, that's my submission, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ramadwa. before I take Honorable Hansing, is that I must register that we must appreciate that both provincial government of the Western Cape and the City of Cape Town, they have given us their presentations. And it would be unfair if we don't give them that space to talk to that document. And we highly appreciate, I've just gone through it. It's quite a detailed one that it doesn't, there are no blind spots, but as we engage on them, we will pick up on that. But I must register that appreciation on behalf of the committee. Honorable Hansinger, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, everybody. Chairperson, I do have an appreciation for the term of reference, and I assume that upon conclusion of this meeting that a report will be compiled. Therefore, Chairperson, I would want to get further detail and clarity on your particular reference in the term of reference, in indicating that there is a particular interest of the Portfolio Committee on the taxi strike, as you put it, relating to the latest occurrence in the Western Cape, particularly in the city of Cape Town. And I would like to know whether this interest and appetite, which you have now expressed in compiling and putting together this Portfolio Committee meeting, whether it is one addressed to the taxi industry, because most certainly we could reference a whole list of occurrences of taxi strikes, of violent incidents where taxis have been involved in the rest of the country. And if I could, I would want to suggest that we extend the term of reference to South Africa and not just focus this on the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape. There are particular incidents of long-distance taxi violence and occurrences which have a different nature. So if it is the interest of the Portfolio Committee to develop a particular insight and understanding, I would therefore suggest that we extend this appetite to the broader spectrum of taxi violence, since it would definitely be of value to the Portfolio Committee instead of just focusing it on the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Let me just see if I'm not missing any hand. Honorable Mabena. Honorable Mabena, over to you, sir. Honorable Mabena, your hand is up, sir.
Yes, sorry about that, Chair. I was speaking, but I was muted. Apologies for that. And also, I'll keep on looking on my left because I'm using a second screen just so that I can be able to read the the presentations, but also be able to follow what is happening there. I think my hand has been up as well, Chair, for quite a while, but I think I didn't want to interject and interrupt you while we were making the opening remarks. But I think this as well, I see that we've only limited the invitations to government to governments at both national, provincial, and also at local level. But I think we're missing, perhaps, unless if I missed it, and if I did, sincere apologies, and I would withdraw that. But I think we're missing key and critical stakeholders in terms of the South African National Taxi Council and also NLTA, the National Taxi Alliance, or NTA, National Taxi Alliance. But also, I think, as Honorable Chris Hansinger was saying, we get taxi violence. I am in Gauteng. Most recently, not a while back, there was a very gruesome murder of a taxi boss in Germiston, which happened at the actual taxi rank. But then there has been other gruesome murders of other people that are involved in the business of the taxi industry. But I see that this is specific to the Western Cape in itself, and that perhaps this is an anomaly. I think we've been part of this committee for the past 4 years, and we've never really had a situation where there's been other violent occurrences across the country, but there's never been a situation where the committee zooms in on them. I'm not saying that this is the problem. This is quite welcome. I think it shows leadership. But also, I think we need to expand in terms of this, not limited to the Western Cape and the city of Cape Town type of thing, because it's something that really occurs across the country. But also, if we are to develop a report after this, the report cannot be in silo and in isolation for other occurrences of violence in nature across the country, so that we can be in a position to move, so that we don't close other people out. But maybe if I can just get the actual process flow in terms of why didn't we have SANTACO and NTA to come into the meeting, or is it because of the IGR process we're limiting it to there? But I think if that's the case, I would also deposit very strongly to say that we're missing key and critical stakeholders. But also, we are also, I think, as the presentations would be done, the implementation of national legislation, it's how is it supposed to be implemented if you look at the provincial governments and if you look at the local governments? Because this is legislation which is there, which has been promulgated, which is there at national level. So those are some of the issues that are there. But I think what then we need to do, in support of what Dr. Chris Hansinger has said, let's expand the scope. And if needs be, this could be the first leg of the meeting. We deal with this issue of the Western Cape. In the second leg, maybe we schedule another meeting next month. We deal with other critical issues which have plagued the industry. And also to note that the minibus taxi industry is the biggest mover of people of South Africa, which commands up over 60% of the total share of the market. So I think it will be critical. If they command 60% nationally, you cannot just isolate it to the Western Cape. We have got to show leadership. We have got to be intentional, to be deliberate around these issues, so that we can cover the breadth and scope of our country. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, honorable members. I don't think we differ. We're on the same page. Probably, I thought when we engage as a committee, then we can deal with these issues, because I would have said as well, without imposing to the committee that maybe there might be a need to meet the taxi industry. But I thought that the message, and I think I did text individual members on this one, that as this issue had a media interest or public interest, and you know that I can't talk about history because I was not here in this committee before. I've just started. I'm hardly 3 months, if I'm not mistaken. That's one. Two is that I have been interviewed by the media, and I have been responding, and very carefully, not also to take a decision on behalf of the committee, but also it could be proper if, as the chair, I speak what the committee would have pronounced itself. But also it was going to be very irresponsible for me as the chair of this committee not to respond to the media and run away, because I'll wait for the committee. And I've done that. And I felt that for all of us to be on board, let us invite direct interested parties or affected parties that can guide us and start with government, and hence this meeting. And what I'm hearing from members is that, and I like the word that we have used, the first leg. Indeed, when we engage, we are going to deal with the first leg and the second leg, or even the legacy leg as well. But when I was responding to the media also, I even alluded to say that probably, having done any study, that probably we use this one as a template, as a case study that will inform the whole country. How do we then handle these matters? Because it worries some of us in particular that the whole economy of the Western Cape has been destabilized, and also the most affected one equally is the poor and the middle class, as well as the business as well. But also it also try, inverted commas, to pose a threat to the investor that would have interest to the country, as well as in particular, in this case, in the Western Cape as the city of Cape Town. With that, and I think we are on the same page. Let's come back when we engage, haven't listened to the presentation, because I said it very clearly that no one is made to sit on the carpet, and we are not here to find fault to anyone, but to say collectively, how do we assist each other as the lawmakers at the national level also? There might be a blind spot. I'm not saying that I'm not a legal person. I haven't done that study as yet, but this exercise will help us to say the laws that we make at a national level, when they get implemented at a local level, does it have unintended consequences, or what? Or is its application, or the bylaws probably, or it could be whatever, but I'm not preempting. I will humble, with respect, without suppressing anyone, that we proceed, and we can even stay behind as members after we would have agreed that we have to adjourn the meeting and then deal with that one, even the program as well, because the future meetings also will be more above what we would have agreed as the program, which is also going to be a very good idea, that we are paying attention to the issues. And I would like to thank all the members that have contributed. And let me just see. I'm not too sure if we want to engage here instead of us getting the presentation thereafter. We can engage, because I want to make that strong suggestion, but I won't suppress anyone. Let me take the new hands. Honorable Stolle, over to you, Ba.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings to all members, the minister and the officials. Honorable Chairperson, my concern was covered by Honorable Mabena, because I was just thinking about the NTA and the SANTACO, because they're supposed to be part and parcel of this engagement, so that we can hear from them. We're supposed to even receive the information from them, and to find out actually what is happening, and why this thing that happened in Western Cape or over the country are happening on their watch. But the other thing, Chairperson, I'm worried, because the presentation for the Department of Western Cape and the municipality, I don't have it here. I don't know what happened, because what I have is only the presentation from the National Department. Thank you, Honorable Chair. If that one can be clarified, because I don't have it. I've tried on my gadget, but there's nothing. Thank you.
No,
Thank
that's
you, Chair.
fine. No, let's just dispose on that one on presentation. We invited them to take us through. We never asked for the presentation, but they courteously, professionally so sent it the presentation, and I guess probably is in the system, because it has been sent just now, to 2 hours or 1 hour before we start. So it's not their fault, but also we're not explicit that we're expecting a presentation. We thought that we'll just get a briefing, and they felt that there must be a presentation. And I would like, without speaking on their behalf, to apologize if you haven't got it on your system, but Valerie can attend to that while I'm just attending to these hands. Let me take the hands that haven't spoken. Honorable Siapi from Police, Acting Chair of Police, followed by Honorable Hansing and Mabena and Honorable Ramadwa. Over to you, Honorable Siapi.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to all colleagues, honorable colleagues on the platform, the ministers and deputy ministers present here. I wanted to support your view, Chair, which was raised in a way by Honorable Mabena, that the purpose is to ultimately have an overview of the country. But for today, remember, even the portfolio of police is invited because of what happened in Cape Town as a result of the taxi industry, and we want to hear from the police. So if you want to expand it to the nation in this, people would not be fully prepared, and somewhere honorable members might say that you misled, because people are not prepared for that. I would agree with your suggestion and that of Honorable Mabena that let's say this is a first leg, focus on what we were invited here for, and then prepare to get a report for the whole country. And some of the issues might be purely for the transport portfolio committee. It may not need us when you move forward. But this one, we're invited for a specific reason. And I would say, let's focus on the item on the agenda. And then at the later stage, as a portfolio committee on transport, you can then decide how to move forward so that we don't go to and fro. Otherwise, we'll have a problem. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Just for the three members that they have got their hands up, honorable members and colleagues on the platform and the attendees, on the 12th of August, I sent a voice note. And also I stated that I feel that I must take the committee and role players must take the committee in confidence. And 100% nobody had a problem to have a special meeting. And one would have from the 12th of August till today, which is the 24th, if some of us as members of this portfolio committee who had an idea and a suggestion to invite other ones, I don't think the chair on behalf of the committee would have undermined that wisdom. But the first leg does cover that wisdom. I just want to, so that I remind the members that it's not like we got the notice today and here we are in a meeting. There has been a one by one members that have been communicated to on, so that also I do take counsel of members that I chair the meeting. Honorable Hansinga, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, in your earlier remark, concern reached me, and that was your reference of the national government making laws, and you referred to the provincial and local government as levels, as if, national government has a overarching superiority over the other provincial and local government. And actually in the Constitution in Chapter 3, you might recall, Chairperson, that the correct reference are spheres of government and not levels. And I'm just concerned that your reference as levels of government might create a wrong impression, because it is explicitly stated as spheres of government, not levels. Thank you, Chairperson.
Oh, that's okay. No, thank you. Honorable Mabena. I'm not too sure whether your hand is still up. Let me check.
Yeah, no, my hand
is covered. Or
yes.
Is it up?
It's up to say I'm not covered.
No, that's fine. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. No, I think we need also just to appreciate your leadership in terms of your consultative nature, but also taking charge in terms of ensuring that we're here today, but also in terms of the measured way that you always engage, like you're engaging now, solutions orientated, and making sure that we confine ourselves into why we're here. But I think what also becomes critical and important is that as members of the portfolio committee, we're not really in charge of the program. I think we're at the mercy of the chairperson, but in this case, as I said in my opening remarks, that the approach that you always employ in terms of being consultative always assists the process. But I think it's only as and when we get here, we're able to engage with your good self and be in a position where we can say, okay, we believe that perhaps this can be assisted or amended in this way. That speaks to the first leg and everything else. I think part of the issues that I wanted to raise, perhaps you've already said that maybe at the end of the meeting, we're going to, one, come up with a program to say, we're expanding this. This is the first leg. We're going to do the rest of the country. And when are we doing it? And then also extend the invitation to SANTACO and NTA. And then I think the Honorable Chairperson of the Police Portfolio Committee, Honorable Siabi, Yes, I agree, Elizabeth. I think that's what you were also perhaps alluding to in that reference. And then also, I think Honorable Mondise has covered the issue of us not having the site of the City of Cape Town presentation, and also the provincial government presentations. So I think perhaps the secretary can assist us there. But I think if we're starting with the National Department of Transport, I think while they're presenting, perhaps the secretary can send us that presentation. But I think, yes, Chair, I think if we're moving in that way, 100%, I think we're happy, and then we'll be able to engage and make sure that we come up with the dates to make sure that we zoom in the rest of the country, zoom in KZN, zoom in Gauteng, zoom in Mpumalanga, and make sure that we come up with practical and inclusive reports. So Honorable Ansinga made the reference that we're going to do a report, but I would like to differ a bit from there, that at the conclusion of this meeting tonight, we can't do a report for this meeting, because we then agree that this is the first leg of the meeting. We're still going to zoom in other provinces. Then let's have a comprehensive, inclusive report, which will not seek to isolate the Western Cape, City of Cape Town, and the provincial government. But we have, as you've provided leadership, and we appreciate you for that, Honorable Chairperson, that we do an inclusive, overarching, countrywide report. Then we do that report once we've done with all the legs, and then we come and then we present. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Ramato.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, I think we have now we have spent 30 minutes discussing before we got a presentation. But nevertheless, I want to indicate that as a portfolio committee, after listening to the presentation, they will tell us what to do. We can't say we want to face second leg, third leg, like what my colleague is saying. Now we are dealing with the taxi strike between the City of Cape Town and the City of Cape Town and SANTACO. So it means we must be focused. After that, my suggestion is that we need to have a portfolio committee meeting after here, wherein we are going to discuss what we must do after listening to the presentation. In that note, I'm proposing that we give people chance who are going to make presentation. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Okay. There will be the last speaker, Honorable Gomba, then we proceed. Honorable Gomba, I recognize you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'm a new member in the Committee of Police. Honorable Chair, let me also greet everyone this evening. Chair, I was listening attentively to Honorable Mabena. And I got a little bit, I just want to be honest and frank, I got very much worried about the approach towards the presentation that we're supposed to be receiving, because I think calling for the City of Cape Town to come and present their report, there must have been a reason for that. And therefore, why I'm saying I'm worried about his input. He states the fact that while zooming in the City of Cape Town, Honorable Chair, this gives me a worry to say perhaps we should have started by accepting those apologies or not accepting them, because to me it gives me the understanding that the City of Cape Town might be also asking itself, why are we called to come and present when this is countrywide, following Mr. Mabena's input. So I want to ask, or maybe to say, Parliament has all the right to call whoever they feel that they want to hear its presentation. And I wouldn't really support the fact that we must also get a counter question to what the parliament wants to do. I therefore don't take Honorable Mabena's contribution kindly. Thank you so much. And it means it will be important for us to understand the reasons for the absence of the people from the city of Cape Town. That will actually make us to want to know more because of the response coming from the honorable member. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Okay, one of the responsibilities, thanks, Honorable Member Makomba. One of the responsibility of the chair is to direct the meeting, but also be mindful not to suppress anyone. Now, honorable members, let's deal with the actual reason why we are here. The rest of the matters, we will then stay behind, not for long, and then we then proceed as such after we have done that. For now, allow...
Sincere apologies to interrupt, and I sincerely apologize for that. But can I be given a chance to speak?
No, you have already opened your mouth. I will allow you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think perhaps we need to assist. You see, when a member makes a contribution and another member says, I won't take a contribution, the contribution is not for you, but I think it's for the meeting. And I think all contributions are important. So there's no one that invited me to make a contribution here. And I think all contributions are going to be taken and directed by the chairperson. So I think for a member to make that insinuation to say that I don't accept the contribution of another member, it's not for you to accept or not to accept. You have to put your own contribution, put your own ideas on the table, let's debate them, and then let's see what we come up with. But for you to make an overarching remark and say you don't accept another member's contribution, I think it's a bit of an overreach. And I think, Chair, I think it's important that we address that. Thank you. Apologies for interjecting.
No, I think all of us have allowed everybody to speak. And now I've come to a determination that we have exhausted our views. We'll come back to them at the end of this meeting. Just to apologize to the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape legislature represented by the, I think is the minister, if I may use that word, of mobility, that at no way that I meant that we are a sub. Obviously, I'm very much affair with the Constitution in terms of the fears of government. And I never thought that it could be an issue. But if you got offended, I apologize. It's not the bankruptcy of understanding the spheres of government from my side. With that, allow me to request the City of Cape Town to take us to talk to their presentation. I'll be guided by the leader of the delegation because I'm not too sure who will be doing the presentation. And I guess by now, Ms. Valerie, you would have emailed and WhatsApp the members as usual for the presentation so that they can have a soft evidence copy on their side while the City of Cape Town will talk to it, and kindly also assist in terms of flighting the presentation, but they will direct us as to how they will walk us through the presentation. Thank you very much. Over to you. I'm not too sure it's ma'am or say. I don't want to, but I know it's an honorable member. Over to you, honorable member from the City of Cape Town.
It is not the City of Cape Town, it's the Western Cape Department of Mobility that is led by Minister Mackenzie.
Okay, let's get it clear, Ms. Valerie. We've got 3 presentations, 2 that you have sent it to me. The one that I've asked you is from the City of Cape Town and also from the Western Cape legislature. Which one then is the actual presentation from the City of Cape Town? Because
the notice that I've sent, it's an apology that the City of Cape Town is not attending. It is
so nobody's attending.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's it. And the reason, I guess, is because I heard over the radio that they had a full council today. But nevertheless, I thought they have sent somebody, hence the presentation. So that's another thing that I would like members to flag at the end. Honorable Minister of the Province of the Western Cape, responsible for mobility, you'll introduce yourself, honorable member, and your delegation, if you do have a delegation. Over to you, sir. Honorable member, my apology. I'm not too sure whether it's a lady or a gentleman, so I will use honorable member. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I am a man. Western Cape Minister of Mobility. I'm going to do the presentation myself, but I'd like to welcome my team who's here this evening, Chairperson, for the record. I see there, if I can ask them to introduce themselves, is that okay?
That will be in order. I'll leave it to you, then we'll bring it back after you have finalized your presentation.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Can you just unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please? I can see you on the screen here so that the members of the committee just know who's here.
Good evening, committee members, honourable members in Parliament. My name is Marissa Moore. I am the HOD for Mobility, here to support Minister Mackenzie. Thank you.
Good evening, honourable members. Deirdre Ribbenart, Chief Director, Transport Operations.
Good evening, members, honourable members. Farrell Payne, Acting Chief Director, Traffic Management.
Yeah, good evening, Honourable Chairperson, members. Mark Skrikke, Acting Chief Director, Mobility Regulation.
I guess, Minister, those are your delegation. You may proceed and take us through the presentation. They will flight it for you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I've actually asked if I can flight it myself just to make it easier. Can you see the presentation, Chairperson?
Yes, thank you so much. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you. So this is obviously, as you requested, just the impact on the minibus taxi strike that we have in the Western Cape, particularly the city of Cape Town, the causes, the impact and the way forward. Just a quick bit of background, Chairperson. When I started in February 2023, we started a taxi task team. The purpose of in fact, the taxi industry wanted to go and strike the day before I started. We've managed to agree to avert that strike and try to look at the matters that is affecting the minibus taxi industry. And on this presentation that you have received, you'll see these are the matters that was discussed. I'm not going to speak through it point by point, but obviously welcome to address questions on it. Taxi task team meetings took place between February and July. The task team was chaired by myself as the Provincial Minister of Mobility. This is the timelines that just what happened just before the strike, to give the standing committee and ideas for the portfolio committee. On the 25th, they were just 2 days ahead of our next task team meeting. We received a letter of withdrawal from SANTACO to Western Cape, citing the lack of progress on the task team and also impoundments. I've written to them on that, I think it was a Wednesday, and asked them to meet urgently that Friday morning. They agreed to the meeting, but then the Thursday evening late, I received a letter from them to say they withdrew from that meeting. A copy of that letter is available. Should the committee wants a copy of that letter. We've subsequently, over the next 3 days, I've asked them to come to more meetings. We've appointed a mediator. They unfortunately did not come to the meetings. We continued with that meeting on the Monday. They did it as the task team. SANTACO did not attend that meeting the Monday. And unfortunately, that incident happened between the minibus taxi industry and Cape Town station that Tuesday. I think if my day or two might not be out, but the actual dates are correct on the presentation. And they then had a subsequent meeting with their members, which they agreed on a strike, or a stay away as they called it. That was on the Thursday. That meeting was attended, was a public meeting, was widely advertised. We had several engagements with SANTACO. The national minister flew down as well. She came to join us in those meetings, and I have to say thank you to her for joining us in those meetings. We almost reached agreement the Friday night, and they then went back to the members the Saturday. They came back with some more demands, which we found was a bit unreasonable. They left that meeting and they came back to us again the Sunday night, the meeting that took place at my office, also attended by the national minister wasn't there the Sunday, she was there the Friday. We then, unfortunately, the meeting was disrupted by an unfortunate incident. I'm not going to go into it in detail. And through that week, we had several engagements back and forth. Obviously, as you all know, there was quite a lot of action that took place, violence, disruption, particularly to the commuters in the city of Cape Town and throughout the Western Cape. These are some of the timelines. I'm not going to speak to them one by one. And these are some of the incidents that happened during the course of the week. Some of you would have seen it. Some of you might not have seen it, including hundreds of thousands of learners that couldn't get to school, the difficulty in getting basic services. Nearly 40 clinics were closed. And I want to take the opportunity to thank our police services, to thank our traffic services, to thank all our law enforcement agencies who, through that week, through that 8 days, did their best, their absolute best, to try and prevent damage to property, looting, and sadly, the incidents of murdering that took place. They've arrested 120 suspects, and those are obviously before the court. The impact of the strike, chairperson and members, was significant. We're currently looking at approximately 5 billion lost to the economy, and including our meeting with the minibus taxi industry, they informed us they lost nearly 16 million rand per day. The current cost estimate for the city of Cape Town specifically is around 18 million rand, but it's just a cost estimate. We did a SNAP survey, chairperson and members. Just some bullet points. 38% of businesses could not sustain their daily activities during the strike. 93% of workers had impacted during the strike. 31% businesses indicated that more than 75% of workers were unable to come to work that day. So these are just some of statistics which we have provided for the standing committee, and just also some additional numbers. Nearly 900,000 people in the city of Cape Town use minibus taxis. And on that Thursday, when the minibus taxi industry decided to withdraw their services, all of you have seen the footage. Many people had to walk long distance to get home. Some even had to stay at bus stops. There were road closures across the province. And sadly, whenever there's a minibus taxi strike, buses get burned. 9 buses were totally gutted, and approximately 200 buses were stoned with damage during the period. And also some My City buses succumbed to some stoning incidents. Our Go George bus services in George were able to increase their service to residents. PRASA, the Passenger Rail South Africa, obviously people could not get to work because of the taxis, so some of their trains and services were impacted. As I indicated, there was a great loss of income for the owners, the minibus taxi industry as well. Just the worsened relationship, obviously it undermined the relationship between government and the industry. The reputational damage for the city of Cape Town, the Western Cape and South Africa. As you will know, and I'm sure the national minister will make that point, that we were actually put on watch lists. So the reputational damage to South Africa during this taxi strike was significant. And it also took place during the Netball World Cup. We've lost the British tourists, and we also lost several hardworking South Africans during that strike. So it was extremely negative for that. The road safety and the legislative mandate, I think it's just important to give the committee some quick figures. It's important because road safety is important, not only for the city of Cape Town, for the Western Cape, but for the country. South Africans, we nearly lose 10,000 plus people on our roads every single year. It is higher than the global average. And that's why road safety is important to us. This is what you can see, some of the recent incidents around taxi accidents. We even had a Bakkie incident in Mitchells Plain recently where 6 children had died. That's why road safety is such an important matter to us. These are some of the legislations governing impoundments. I'm sure my colleagues in the National Department will also speak to, because it is national legislation. What we have received is a letter last week, Friday, late from the National Minister, just giving their interpretation of the legislation. Obviously, we have asked for our own legal interpretation. because this has never been tested before. It's a thing that this has been around since 2017, and this is the first time this is going to be tested. So we have asked our legal lawyers also for an interpretation, and that will be hopefully be available by either tomorrow or Monday, and we will provide that also to the standing committee should it be required. The way forward, an agreement was signed with the minibus taxi industry, the Premier in the Western Cape last week, to start looking at the conditions of the operating licenses and start looking at what is impoundable and what is not impoundable. We had a very productive meeting on Tuesday, and next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's a 3-day imbizo with the minibus taxi industry, the City of Cape Town, Western Cape government, as to craft a way forward as to how to ensure this does not happen again, including a strike notice period, because we cannot see the pictures and what we've seen in the City of Cape Town nearly 13, 14 days ago, where people were left stranded. So in the future, there's an escalation period where if the minibus taxi feels aggrieved by anything, they need to inform myself and the MACO member. We have 2 days to respond to it. After there's not a conclusion to it, that can be escalated to the Mayor of Cape Town and the Western Cape Premier. If after 5 days they're not happy with that, then we have a possible arbitration period. And if they're not happy with it, then they can, with 36 hours notice, inform us either they go on a strike or consult with the members. Ideally, obviously, we would not want them to go on a strike, but it gives us an opportunity to deal with any other matter before that happens, Chairperson, because we don't want to see what we've seen, what happened few days ago. What on the way forward, one is to look at the underlying root causes of the minibus taxi industry for long-term strategy. We can do what we can in the Western Cape, but like some of your members have said, this is a countrywide issue. Unfortunately, since 1994, nothing much has been done with the minibus taxi industry. There was several task teams, I think by the late Mac Maharaj. There was another Lekgotla attended in 2020. So there is a big discussion. Unfortunately, every crisis brings us an opportunity. And I do believe, Chairperson, that this committee that you have invited us here gives us a massive opportunity to deal with the structural issues in the minibus taxi in South Africa. So because public transport needs to be addressed, but I have to say during the taxi strike, a lot was said. So all of us as leaders, we need to show calm and maturity because we're dealing with complex issues. We're dealing with many stakeholders and obviously people have different objectives. The minibus taxi industry is not going away and it should not go away. We believe as the mobility department is part of our mobility ecosystem and it must be integrated with a functioning rail system. Part of the reason why the 70% of the people were stranded on the road that evening is because the rail system is not working, as you know, but that's for another standing committee meeting. The last 2 points, Chairperson, the minibus taxi industry has not been subsidized since 1994. Like I said, despite several task teams, the 2020 Lekgotla, which was attended by the President, so various commitments were signed. In fact, through our Blue Dot minibus project that we've started in the Western Cape, nearly to the cost of 150 million rand, we've started that process of trying to subsidize the minibus taxi industry. That Blue Dot project is the only one in the country. So this crisis that we have faced the last 12 days gives us a massive opportunity to start dealing with the structural issues that the minibus taxi has been facing for the last 30 years in South Africa post-94. And I think that, and in my personal view, and I'm sure shared by many members of your committee, is the structural matter that must be sorted out. And I hope we can get to that point if we do decide to travel around the country and meet with other provinces also. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable MEC Mackenzie. Honorable members, will follow we don't have the City of Cape Town, notwithstanding that the parts of the MSC also touched to the City of Cape Town and all that, but also he wouldn't have touched the issues of bylaws and its application. So we'll flag that one and we'll discuss it later if there's a need to have an engagement and a presentation from the City of Cape Town moving forward, having received a written presentation.
Chairperson?
Allow me.
Chairperson, can I just make one point?
Yes, MEC.
So I
You
can't
may.
speak on behalf of the city of Cape Town, but there's been a massive confusion, and my colleagues in National Department will also concur with me. There was not a bylaw issue yet. It's been a massive misunderstanding between various people. But I hope that the city, when they do present, you can speak to them. It's a difference of interpretation, which my colleagues in the National Department, like I said, we have different interpretations of it, and that will be clarified should it at that stage. Hopefully it won't get to the courts, but if it does get to that stage, it will be clarified. Thank you.
No, I think MEC will agree with me that whether it's bylaws or not, the City of Cape Town will also clarify it from somebody who's outside is not too sure. So I use that word very carefully. Honorable Minister, over to you, ma'am. Honorable Minister responsible for transport in the country, Honorable Cindy Chikunga, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Ms. Manali Soma, members of the committee, of the portfolio committees that are in attendance, Deputy Minister of Transport, Honorable Lisa Manu, MEC for Mobility in the Western Cape, Honorable Ricardo Mackenzie, representatives from provincial government, and I understand that the city is not with us, officials from all spheres of government, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to come and address you on the recent taxi conflict in and around Cape Town that has resulted in SANTACO affiliated taxi associations suspending operations. Much has been and continues to be said about the root causes of the conflict and proposed way forward with regard to its resolutions. We will focus more on the role we as the National Department of Transport played and continue to play to ensure that there is both sustained stability and peace in our transport ecosystem. We were alerted to a taxi conflict between SANTACO, Western Cape, and the City of Cape Town that resulted in the latter suspending operations from the Wednesday, the 2nd of August, until Thursday, the 10th of August, 2023. Initially, it was the 9th of August, 2023. Initially, reports were that the taxi operators had walked out of a task team meeting that was dealing with their grievances, among them being impoundment of taxis, even for minor infringements as a result of the implementation of the city's bylaws. That is what we were told about initially, and I want to emphasize that point. I am specifically emphasizing this point because peddlers continue to narrate that it is the Minister of Transport that came up with the issue of bylaws. On the contrary, it is the Department of Transport led by myself that upon obtaining the briefing from SANTACO Western Cape, that we established that the real root cause was the implementation of conditions put on the operating licenses by the province, implemented by the City Traffic Police as per Section 87 of the National Land Transport Act number 5 of 2009. On Friday, the 4th of August, 2023, I issued a media statement condemning the violence that characterized the strike and committed to getting directly involved in resolving the impasse between the City of Cape Town and the taxi industry led by SANTACO. I also enthused on the parties to immediately return to the negotiation table. On the 4th of August, that was on Friday, I then met with SANTACO at their offices in Belleville. In this meeting with SANTACO, I expressed my concern about the suspension of the services, as well as the associated violence and the brutality that seemed to have occurred, and wanted to know from SANTACO the root causes of the conflict and possible proposals for a solution. This would enable myself to persuade SANTACO to return to the negotiation table and the department to table the same in a planned meeting with the city and the province later on the same day. And this indeed, as I was at the SANTACO offices, I did communicate with the province, in particular with me, MEC Makando. SANTACO indicated that there are long outstanding issues between themselves and the city, but most recently, they included, one, the impoundment of their vehicles for minor infringements that, according to them, do not warrant such harsh punishment, like minor defects on a vehicle, like no reflector or there is a defective light, etc. Brutality and heavy-handedness by the city police and getting no assistance when they report cases at the police station was another matter that SANTACO raised with myself. SANTACO made it clear that they are law-abiding, and as such, they have no problem in vehicles being impounded for serious infringements, thereby proposing that the city should stop impounding their vehicles for minor infringements. According to them, they have no problem if vehicles are impounded based on the following. They say at that meeting of the 4th, if there is no operating license, if the vehicle is unroadworthy, or the driver does not have a driving license or PDP. They also pleaded for transparency in the handling of cases of police brutality on the taxi industry, as well as release of vehicles impounded for minor infringements. Then, of course, on that same day, on Friday in the afternoon, we then met with the province as well as the city. In that meeting, present was MEC Mercado and the MEC responsible for transport, his Rob Quinten. In this meeting with government representative, I again expressed concern about the effect the impasse is having, not only in the city and the province of Western Cape, but also in the country. And therefore, indeed, MEC Mackenzie is correct about that. I then tabled SANTACO's proposals to the meeting. After some discussions and consultation, the city, supported by the province, offered the following: that there shall be no impoundment of vehicles for minor infringements. Vehicles already impounded for these minor infringements will be released without a payment of an impoundment fine, and that impoundment shall remain the remedy for serious infringements. The city insisted that their offer is conditional on SANTACO denouncing violence. In their own words, they said, stopping the violence, whereupon an agreement will be prepared and both parties will have to show commitment by signing on Sunday, the 6th of August, 2023 at about 9, the agreement. Then, of course, there were a series of meetings during the week of the 7th up to the 10th of August. We also led a series of meetings in that week in our efforts to bring the two parties towards convergence. The position of the province remained that there should be a discussion on what is major and minor infringement. SANTACO, on the other hand, was steadfast in maintaining that the conditions are illegal and should be removed. The National Department of Transport was clear that resolutions must find expression in law, basically meaning that the intentions, that is the purpose of both the NLTA and the NRTA, should guide the process. In the process, we also briefed a senior counsel through state who opined in parts as follows. He said, a substantial argument can, however, be made that conditions which regulate the driving of the vehicle in question, such as those in condition 3, which require compliance with the provisions of the NRTA, do not fall within the scope of the NLTA, and therefore do not fall within the scope of the power conferred by 57.5 to impose conditions, and that such conditions are accordingly invalid. The legal opinion further says the same conclusion is reached through an argument based on the condition that impoundment is only justifiable when it is rationally related to the purpose of that action, namely to remove the vehicle from the road until the alleged offense has been investigated and prosecution has been brought to an end. Further, it says the conditions in question are imposed by the provincial regulatory entity. It is the provincial authorities which have the power to address the matter which I have raised, not the city. That is what the senior counsel says. He then says, I therefore recommend that the minister bring the matters raised in this opinion to the attention of the premier and engage him on the way forward in this regard. This opinion agrees with our view that the conditions are already provided for in the National Road Traffic Act, and therefore subsuming them under the NLTA with different penalty structure is not consistent with the latter. We have since advised the province to withdraw these conditions, replace them with those that are aligned to the NLTA. What is further encouraging is that on Thursday, the 10th of August, we received information that the parties met and agreed that operations would resume on Friday, the 11th August, as they have found convergence on key issues. We're also told that the agreement has been made a court order on agreement between the parties. We make a clarion call to both sides to respect the agreement, as we believe it was signed in good faith. Notwithstanding the agreement between the parties, we will implement the recommendations of the legal opinions, as that would provide a sustainable solution and remove ambiguity in the interpretation of the NLTA for the benefit of all the implementers in the country. Chairperson, can I request that the department follow with an elaborate presentation? And in this case, I will allow the DG to take us through the presentation. I thank you very much, Chairperson. I thank the MEC as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Yes, indeed. DG, over to you, sir. Unmute yourself, DG.
Honorable Chairperson is the DDG. I'm not sure if the DG is in the meeting, but if allowed, I can proceed. Chair and Honorable Minister.
You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Honorable MC Mackenzie, colleagues, and all protocol observed. My name is Mataba Tamukonyama. I'm the
Mr. Matabata, if you may give us a reason why your video is not on. All of us were showing our faces so that it's evidence that we're not robots. If you may do that, unless if it will impact on your connectivity, then you can request a permission to do so.
Oh, thank you very much. And I will show it, but one, I'm sure that there will be challenges with connectivity, but also there's coming load shedding around 8 o'clock in my space, but I don't have a problem in showing my my face. I don't know if I'm everybody can see me now.
No, we can see you.
Thanks for the update.
Yes, we can see you.
This is the baby face.
And I think you're already load shaded. But we can see you on a lighter note. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. As the Minister indicated, I think she's touched on almost quite a number of areas, including the process. We shall just elaborate on one or two issues and probably spend a little bit more time around the steps that we are taking now after we were alerted that the parties have actually agreed. Chair, the purpose of the presentation is, of course, to provide information to the portfolio committee on the taxi conflict, as the minister indicated, that resulted in the stay away, as indicated. Chair, Minister has dealt much on the background, but just to quote from the statement that the minister made, is that the ongoing strike has had detrimental impact on the lives of ordinary citizens who depend on taxis for their daily transportation needs. It is crucial that all parties involved prioritize the well-being of the public and work towards finding a solution. But further, she then assured the public that her department is closely monitoring the situation and is committed to facilitating discussions between the industry and the city. Chair, as indicated, the initial reports, even I think from the taxi operators, were that the city is implementing bylaws that are problematic, have introduced impounding even for small and minor infringements. That was what came through. But really, I think very early in the process, it was it was clarified that it is the conditions on the operating license issued by the province. Chair, the efforts in terms of resolving the impasse efforts of the duty led by the minister, I wouldn't want to repeat those because I think the issues were impoundment, harassment, and the delays in processing the operating licenses by the provincial operating entity PRI, which as a result of the city not providing the concurrence, and therefore vehicles being found without the necessary documentation. And the minister has spoken about the alleged brutality and heavy-handedness by the police. I think there were also some videos circulating around that point. Chair SANTACO said that key three things which they regard as major. They wouldn't have a problem in them being included as impoundable offenses. One. Number two, Chair, they indicated that the backlog at the PRI should be investigated in terms of what is it that is holding back the issuing of licenses. And of course, Minister spoke about the follow-up of cases of police brutality and the release of impounded vehicles. Honorable Chair, honorable members, we then had these agreements that I would not repeat for the sake of time, wherein the city and the province agreed in principle to the issue around impoundment for minor infringements, and then vehicles already parted for this will be released, and then fact that for serious offenses, and there shall be a sit down, and then the invited SANTACO could come to the task team to deal with what is minor and what is major. Unfortunately, that Saturday, the meeting came up with new issues from SANTACO, and the meeting, as the MSS indicated, collapsed on Sunday, the 6th. So I'm sorry about that. As I said, the meeting then collapsed on Sunday, but again, we went down to Cape Town with the minister on Monday to try and bring both parties to the table. And at that time, we were already armed with the fact that the conditions, as we then understood them, and the conditions as the issues of contention that caused the strike are included in the operating license or the permit, and those conditions are basically the infringements that originate from the National Road Traffic Act, and in the National Road Traffic Act, they are not impoundable offenses. Basically, they have the penalty structure in the NRTA. What the NRTA, what the conditions did was then to add impoundment on those penalty structure. And this is what we tested via firstly internal legal opinion in the department, but also the services of a senior counsel based in Cape Town, appointed by the state attorney. The state attorney around the legality or not of those regulations. Chair, Thursday, we then got information that they have agreed to resume services based on the following, among others. I think this is partly extracted from the agreement, that the impoundments will continue where there is no operating license, or where the vehicles are off-road or on incorrect routes without a driver's license, and then the vehicles that are not roadworthy. SANTACO will end the strike, and then in future we'll give 36-hour notice, as the MBS has indicated, 36-hour notice to the city before embarking on a strike. Of course, after the engagements as thoroughly explained by the Honorable MEC. And then the task team will further define a list. Although there's agreement on the 3, then on the list there will be those therefore that would be deemed, would have to be clarified and categorized in major versus minor, and then allotted accordingly. And then this will also be in the form of an SOP that will guide enforcement on the route, so that it limits the discretion given by Section 87. Chair, this is the legislative framework. I would not necessarily want to repeat it. It is there. It is the approved act. The challenge and the biggest issue is 90, subsection 1B. So the 87 is about impoundment, and then it's cross-referred to 91A and B. There is no dispute around 91A, which talks about no operating license, and then B, if the person operates public transport service contrary to the terms and conditions of an operating license, and the terms and conditions of an operating license are found in 50, which then talks to the having to have an operating license. But further down, there will then be 57.5 that says the provincial regulating entity shall make conditions as it deems fit. And then we just thought, for the purpose of this meeting, we then would want to include the Western Cape conditions that are attached to the operating license. I think of contention is, I would say, condition 3, which says that the vehicle shall be impounded. Any violation of the National Road Traffic Act, here referred to as the NRTA and associated regulations, by the holder of this operating license, the driver of the specified vehicles, or any other employee of the holder in relation to the authorized service, constitute a violation of the terms and conditions of this operating license. This may result in the impoundment of the specified vehicle in terms of 87.1 of the NLTA, pending the investigation and prosecution of that person for an offense mentioned in 91B of the NLTA. Now, this is the main issue. Chair, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, this is the issue. So the conditions have taken the NRTA provisions and the regulations, the specific parts of the regulations that talk to offenses, and then superimposed or subsumed them under NLTA 87.1 as conditions spoken about in terms of provided for in terms of 91B, 90 subsection 1 subsection B of the NLTA. And then there's the list. Importantly, Chair and members, is this cross-reference to the sections of the NRTA. Because if you go to these sections of the NRTA, you then find a fine, failure to comply with an instruction of a traffic, and an associated penalty. And that penalty does not include impoundment. So that's where we got stuck with everybody to say, but why are we then adding impoundment if it is not it was never the intention of the NRTA to also include impoundment of a vehicle on this infringements. So there's a list of them. I think there's about 14 or so of those conditions under sub-conditions under condition number 3. So all of this, in terms of the condition on the operator licenses, then become impoundable offenses. They become, means what it says is that your vehicle may be impounded. So then the discretion it becomes that of the officer on the road to impound a vehicle on any of these, and all of them. There is none of them that does not cross-refer to either the National Road Traffic Act or the National Road Traffic Regulations. And you go back to read those pieces of legislation, that pieces of legislation and the regulations, it will give you what should be the fine be. And so that's why Minister emphasized the fact that going forward, we need to be guided by the law. And that is why the legal opinion says there could be a case to be made for these conditions to be ultra vires, the NLTA. Just snippets of 2 opinions so far. The DOT internal one indicates that if the exercise of a public power is not sanctioned by the empowering statute, it will be unlawful and invalid. I think just want to take that quotation. And the opinion by the senior counsel, I think the minister dealt with it, Chairperson. The current status is that there is an agreement signed with the city of Cape Town. It is encouraging. SANTACO did boycott the meeting of the minibus taxi team on the 15th of August, say that they are consulting on their members on the alleged impoundments that continued after the signing of this agreement. But what is encouraging is that they came back on the 22nd. They were there, and there's positive thing going on there. Now, they also, in the meantime, tried to interdict the bidding application to interdict the impoundments, but we are told that by agreement, that agreement was actually on the very same day made an order of the court. The minister indicated that she has informed the MEC about the legal opinion, and then requested humbly so for the province to consider and review the conditions based on the fact that there could be challenges with consistency with the NLTA. The MEC, as he has indicated in the meeting, he is taking legal opinion, and that's the response, and shall revert back to the minister. The other positive is that I've mentioned this meeting of the 22nd, according to the parties, was successful. This is supposed to be successful. My apology, Honorable Chair. And then we in the meantime at the national, because really this to make an assessment if this is a national challenge and a problem with the conditions made by provinces. We have convened, fortunately, the drafters of the NLTA. Some of them are still with us on this earth. We convened them to provide us with guidance and way forward. They are looking at a number of option analysis in terms of how we then can make an assessment, because the idea at the end is to standardize across nationally on what did we really mean by conditions and how those conditions should be crafted to be in sync and aligned to the NLTA without really providing conditions ourselves, because that is not the intention of the Act, but to guide, as we do with many other provisions of the Act that are implemented by the other two spheres. We guide that implementation. Thank you, Chairperson. That then is the work done and still to be done by the National Department of Transport in the taxi space. We hear and acknowledge the fact that there are broader issues and questions of national importance that we need to look at. And those are the things that we definitely will take home with us. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, DDG and the Honorable Minister Chikunga. Now, Honorable Members, we will ask questions of clarity, but noting that the intention of this meeting is not to find fault, but to clarify so that we can be empowered with factual information when we deliberate on the matter. And also be mindful that the City of Cape Town is not here, then that will mean that we'll encourage us to ask questions that had to be responded to by the City of Cape Town. And as to when we're going to meet the City of Cape Town, just to preempt you, let's deal with it later, as I suggested earlier on. Over to you, honorable members. I'm not going to summarize what has been captured. All of us, I believe, in our good spaces, we've been taking notes. As such, myself also, I've been taking notes, but I'll start with your good self before I ask any points of clarity. Over to you, honorable members. I'll look at the platform, and as well, I'll request our committee secretary to assist me to, if there are any hands that I would, by default, omit them. I can see Honorable Mabena, Honorable Sitole, even honorable members from the police PC are allowed, only honorable members that serve in National Assembly or Parliament, rather, let me use that word, Honorable Nurjungu. Okay, Nurjungu, as well as Comrade Golding, Honorable Kumalo, and for now, honorable members, Honor Ramadwa. I guess, honorable members, those are the hands, and I'm sure there will be no other hands, and I really appreciate these 6 hands as they follow each other. Honorable Mabena, Honorable Stole, you're number 2, Honorable Nurjungu, you're number 3, Goldeng is Honorable, you're number 4, Makumalo, you're Honorable Kumalo, number 5, as well as Honorable Ramadwa, and I guess
Honorable Chair, my hand is also up.
It's only came now when I was reading the names, ma'am. So I am very much alive in terms of the gadget. Honorable, where's this one? Honorable Hansinger, yes. Hansinger, yes. Then I'll call your names, honorable members, and we'll take first bite if there is, which I'll limit the hands thereof. Let me start with Honorable Jobe.
Sorry, Chairperson. It's Piet Meyer. I've got a problem. I also want to say something. Thank you very much.
Let me just say, don't close your mic so that I can pick you up here from the gadget. Honorable May. Oh, yes, I didn't see you in attendance. Thanks very much for that, so that you are not left out. Honorable Sitole, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the information from the Minister and from the MEC, from the MMC of Western Cape. Honorable Chairperson, my first question that I'm trying to check if they are talking about the minor infringement, when they say it's a minor infringement, how did they measure that this is the minor infringement? And the major infringement, how do they measure that one? And how long does it take, when and how, to ensure that they are both of these minor and the major infringement are being violated the Road Traffic Act? So I'm trying to check, and then how long does that take from the official, from the offices from the police to ensure that these are the minor, these are the major. And another chairperson that I'm trying to check, the impoundment of motor vehicles. If they impound, how many violation of the Traffic Act is supposed to happen before they impound the motor vehicles? Because sometimes you can find that the taxis are doing whatever they want to do in the road. Sometimes you can find that even if you are driving, they can come and bump on front of you without even saying excuse or something like that. I'm trying to check because they are doing that every day. And then another thing, the Honorable Chairperson, I'm trying to check when are we going to have the presentation from the Department of Western Cape, so that, Chairperson, we can compare the constitutionality of their bylaws and the what you call and the nationally status of the law. So if that one can be clarified, and the last one, Chairperson, I will be very happy if we can have a meeting with the province of Western Cape, so that we can combine and find all the information from the Western Cape, the national department, the taxi industry, because they must come. The taxi industry must give their vision on what is happening. But thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
No, thanks to you, sir. What I remember, just for following members, the City of Cape Town is not here. The MEC is the MEC member of the Executive Council of the Legislature of Western Cape, Honorable Mackenzie. So that's why I said before I take any hands that I made that one very explicit, so that anything pertaining to the City of Cape Town, and I will urge both Honorable Mackenzie and Honorable Minister that they don't get tempted to speak on behalf of the city, because I don't think they do have that mandate. Nevertheless, we may proceed to Honorable Mabena. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Again, I would just say that colleagues must not be alarmed if my head keeps looking to my left here. I'm not sure if on your screen it records as right or is also left. I'm looking at a second and I'm reading on the laptop here on the other issues. I think first and foremost, we note the progress of the minibus taxi task team, and I think it's an important progress towards ensuring that matters are brought into perspective and that issues can be adequately dispensed with. But I think on the same issue, I think there needs to be, we have to be firm and say we need to also affirm our commitment and recommit ourselves to the rule of law in terms of what the law says in its current form. And I understand that this is an issue of, this is a matter that is an issue of contention at the moment. But I think one other issue that perhaps we ought not to to forget about is that the rule of law remains sacrosanct, and the rule of law in itself is one thing that continues to guide us, and in terms of our engagements with each other, making sure that we don't infringe on another person's rights and privileges, be it motorists or whatever the case might be. But I think on the other issue is, I've got a particular challenge with the approach of the defining of what is a minor infringement and what is a major infringement. I want to also perhaps say this. The presentation says within 14 days, the MTTT is going to agree on a list of what constitutes a minor infringement, what constitutes a major infringement. But then my question now becomes to say, in a result where there is an okay, say this happens, we're successful in doing this, we classify this is a minor infringement, this is a major infringement. What then happens in a situation where what is classified as a minor infringement results in an incident or even an accident? Are we not opening ourselves up in terms of, or are we not opening government? Let me not say ourselves. Are we not opening government to risk of litigation? What then happens when, in terms of, because this will be a new list that will be there, and if, say, for interest's sake, everyone follows what the minister is asking everyone to do, say withdraw this and then have something else, and then you classify that as a minor offense, it results in an incident or an accident, someone takes this issue on litigation, then it is found that, okay, but this was classified as a minor incident, and therefore, but then it has resulted in a major occurrence, which is unfortunate. But then, are we not opening government for risk of litigation and the implications thereof, looking at that? And then also another issue is that the list is said that is going to be done within the next 14 days. But also the Western Cape provincial government, I think Minister Mackenzie, when he was presenting, and also noted in the same presentation by DDG Matabata, that there is also a legal opinion that will be sought, because in the presentation it is noted that the minister wrote to Honorable Mackenzie. Honorable Mackenzie responded that they are also seeking their own legal opinion. Then what happens when it becomes conflicting legal opinions? But also noting that SANTACO has also litigated as well in this issue. And then now we're saying within 14 days we have to come up with a standard operating procedure to guide the enforcement of these issues. What then happens when the Western Cape provincial government legal opinion comes and is say maybe it's not consistent with what the two legal opinions internal within the National Department of Transport and the senior counsel appointed by the state law advisor or the state law attorney or the state attorney or something to that effect. And then what then happens if this issue goes, if then it lands that, okay, we've got three conflict, two which are consistent with each other, but there's one that is inconsistent with that one, therefore we proceed to litigation. Then what then happens to these 14 days where an SOP has to be taken? Because if the issue in court is not perhaps given, is not admitted as an urgent issue, but also if it's admitted as an urgent issue, what if it is not dispensed with within the 14 days, whereas the SOP has to have been concluded? Now, the other issue that is here, the speaking notes of the Honorable Minister, I think particularly in, I think is the second point here, where the Minister says that initial reports where that this was an issue of the bylaws or the issue between the City of Cape Town and SANTACO. But then point number 3 also says that the minister also, after having consulted with SANTACO, the Western Cape SANTACO issued a media statement. Now, my question is, in terms of IGR, so the minister issues, so I want clarity here. I'm not making inference, but I want assistance and clarity from the department to say that the minister relied on media reports, one, but also issued a media statement, because in the speaking notes and even in the presentation, it's not explicit and apparent that the minister did utilize IGR processes in terms of engaging with, one, the city of Cape Town, and if possible, also engage the Western Cape provincial government, but then relied on media reports and also seemingly only consulted one party which is involved in this thing. Because if you look at the speaking notes of the minister, particularly point number 2, it says that a briefing from SANTACO Western Cape took place. And then point number 3 says that a media statement condemning the violence was released. I think I don't have a particular problem with the media statement condemning violence and lawlessness. I think we support that, but I just want to understand the process flow around that, because it gives an impression that only one side was really consulted, whereas IGR processes were perhaps, I don't know what is the right way to use to say that they were suspended and not really used. I think I've already dispensed with the issue of the minor and small infringements, and also the fact that on the NRTA and the NLTA, the infringements DDG Matabata makes is that there is a penalty structure, but also that section 57.7 says that it is the discretion of the provincial authority to make conditions in line with the NRTA and then NLTA. But then also, if you go back again in terms of if you look at slide number 12, if you look at the legislative framework to say, or particularly the Western Cape operating license conditions, I mean, some of the issues here is things that Honorable Sitole was at pains to explain here. And I think most of us are frustrated with to say that someone who's driving whilst intoxicated, I understand that this may be a laborer's point to make, given the fact that there's a list that is going to be defined. But then I've also, in my opening remarks, I've also flagged that what then happens in case that once we define that list, we define it as a minor infringement, but then results in a problem. But someone driving while intoxicated is a major problem. Someone recklessly driving, cutting in after a passing vehicle, it's a major problem. Touting for passengers along some of the routes which are dangerous and you're not allowed to stop there, it's a major issue. Disobeying traffic signals, like disobeying traffic channeling lines, driving in an oncoming traffic lane, speeding, overloading, hindering of or obstructing traffic on a major public road, parking or stopping a vehicle illegally on a public road. All of these issues, to me, at least, relying on the NRTA and also the...
Honorable Mapena, I know that you are thorough, but also do give space for other honorable members, your colleagues, to input. If you are not covered, then you come back. But you may just proceed. I'm sure you are towards the ending in terms of the comments and the questions as it were.
Thanks, Chair, but I think that was really my last point. But just to drive the point home, of the Western Cape provincial governments operating license conditions, which they're obviously empowered by I think it's section 87(1), subsection 1. What then becomes of which ones specifically here are will we say that these are minor infringements and all the other issues? But I think, Chair, I'll take your direction as you are chairing. I think I'll come back as per your directives. Thank you very much.
No, thanks very much. Much appreciated your attitude. That will bring us to Honorable Golden. Honorable Golden, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Am I audible?
You are
Am I-
audible from my
am I
side.
audible?
Thank you very
I-
much. You may proceed.
I don't have a camera on my side. I'll be quick. My first 2 or 3 questions are addressed to MEC
Just
Mackenzie.
repeat about the camera issue. What's the issue with the camera?
I don't have a camera on my desktop computer, ma'am.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. You must get a
Okay.
proper gadget.
Okay.
On a lighter
First,
note.
thank you, ma'am. The first question is to MEC Mackenzie. He spoke about the Blue Dot program, which I understand was run as a pilot in the Western Cape, which I believe operated with about 800 taxis. Could you explain to us how that worked, why that pilot ended, and what that recommendation is going forward? Because it seems to have helped with compliance, which is what this is about. So that's question 1. Question 2 to the MEC was, we were talking about minor infringements versus major. I do believe that post the agreement, some of the taxis were released. Can he indicate what those numbers were? I do believe that he has that, because my understanding is it was a very small total and the bulk of them stayed impounded. Then thirdly, which I think colleagues spoke to, was round fines. NRTA versus NLTA. The one is the general regulation for all of us, and the NLTA covers transport of passengers, which we hold to a much higher level at safety of passengers and paying passengers. What is the payment rate, as best as you understand, on that? Because I understand what is happening now is that vehicles are being impounded because fines aren't being paid. Those are the questions to the MEC. The next questions then would be to the Minister and the DDG. Ma'am, you indicated that in your engagement with the industry, with SANTACO, they were indicating what they'd prefer to have impounded and what they'd consider minor, and that then came back. Ma'am, I charge that the law holds equal footing, or justice is equal across everybody. Nobody can choose what they want and what they don't. When there's participation in these sessions, you're welcome to input, but no single industry can dictate to national government, to local government, or to provinces how the law is interpreted within their context only. So I've got a problem with that. And if you can give me a bit more detail on how that went down. I'm going to then touch on the DG statement as it pertains to the comparative or the violations as pertains to the NRTA versus NLTA. My understanding is that the operating license purely referenced the violations in the NRTA. So it referenced that. It didn't reference its penalties. It's a reference. I charge then that all the province would then need would be to take all those violations, copy and paste them out of the NRTA and paste them in the operating license. And that would then overcome all the issues which we have. That still doesn't do it justice. So the issue was a schedule of penalties for national land transport versus normal public road vehicles. There was an issue as it pertains to national standards. And I'm concerned because when we're talking about trying to apply national standards, that's all well and fine, but can we not reach any rights of the provinces in this process? We need to understand, as indicated clearly, that there are spheres of government and the province is executing its legislative or constitutional right. So if I can get a comment on those issues from the MEC first, and then the Minister and the DG. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Honorable Golding. That will bring us to Honorable Noluchungu. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me first thank you for convening this meeting because no one would have stood by whilst lives were lost during this strike. Here we are talking about an industry that has got 70% market share of work trips. And we have seen what has happened during the strike. The MEC has presented here figures of people that were not able to get to work, and some of those people had to walk back from work because of the strike that was declared during the day before the end of the workday. Mine is very simple. There are causes that have been mentioned that have sort of led to the strike. One condition was that is the condition on the operating licenses. The second one mentioned was the delays in the issuing or the process of the operating license. Now, I want to ask from the provincial department that what is the cause for these delays and what are they going to do to expedite the issuing of these operating licenses? Of course, we all know what the real problem is, but it manifests itself in different ways. You have an industry that's got a 70 market share that is not being subsidized. And we've been calling for the subsidization of the taxi industry. There have been the khutlas, there's been everything, but it doesn't come to fruition. We want to know, when is this thing going to be resolved? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Njungu. I guess, although you didn't direct, one is you did direct the province, the one for subsidization, and I give it to the minister, and she can delegate whether the DG responds to that, because she is the leader of the delegation of transport as responsible EA. Let me come to Honorable Madam Dunga. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to all in this platform. Chairperson, I thought I never heard you when you talking about City of Cape Town that is not in the platform, because I was having a problem of load shedding when the meeting started. As you may notice that I joined very late. Now that we do have, some of us do have questions to City of Cape Town, what are those questions going to, what will happen to those questions? Who will be taking care of those questions? Because it means that now I'll be wasting my energy and time asking questions that won't be responded to. Thanks.
Okay, Honorable. Okay, no, I think I will try to guide you, ma'am, that at the end of this meeting, engagement with the Western Cape Provincial Department of Mobility, led by Honorable MEC Mackenzie, as well as the minister leading the national department, we will then respond to that. But please, you are correct that we will all be encouraged to refrain to ask questions for the City of Cape Town, because nobody is going to respond, because I wouldn't necessarily encourage Honorable Mackenzie and Honorable Minister, Honorable MEC Mackenzie and Honorable Minister to respond on behalf of the City of Cape Town. That would be very unfair, having them send the presentation, which they would have lovely presented themselves. So we will decide date and time and where we will engage with them in the immediate future. I guess I cover your question and everybody else. You may proceed, ma'am.
Thanks. That's exactly that I wanted to propose, that can't we have a date and time where we'll be able to interact with them? Thank you that you have covered that. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, so you are done you for now.
Yes, I'm done, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much as well. Let me allow Honorable Hansinga. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you very much for all the presentations and the submissions. It certainly has brought some understanding and insight. Chairperson, yes, in looking at what we were submitted with from the presentations, it is clear that on the one hand, there was a particular wish list, and the wish list remains from the taxi industry of how they would want to be treated. And then there's this underlying suggested unreasonableness against a particular legal framework, which is quite clear. It's not been presented in this manner to us, which is quite disappointing. But I have knowledge of the current legislative framework that any law enforcement officer in any sphere of government has a discretionary power under the law to either issue a warning, to issue a fine, to issue a summons, or to impound the vehicle, or to get hold of the license or permit or the documents related to the operation of the vehicle. But the balance against this discretionary power, which could include to impound a vehicle, related to that, there is a balance of the equal discretionary power and rights of the driver of the vehicle to contest these measures implemented by law enforcement officers through the various appeal mechanisms or to go to court. So indeed, there is a balance. It is not as unreasonable as what the situation has been created in order to justify the involvement and actually, everything that we have on our agenda this evening. And everything is in national legislation, in the National Land Transport Act. And Section 87, which was presented here very partially this evening, Section 87 is very clear that impoundment can result if a person does not hold a valid driving license or if a vehicle is not roadworthy, and another 3 conditions. So 5 basic categories of condition. Now, most certainly, the detail which a particular sphere of government has now detailed out with particular bullet points can very clearly be justified under unroadworthy vehicles. So to me, the whole framework is very clear, and the authority which the other spheres of government in province and municipalities have, and what has happened is directly related to national legislation. So even after we've received all these submissions, there is still a lot of debatable points, but the fact remains that whatever the City of Cape Town or provincial government has executed was done under the authority of the legal framework of a national legislation, the NLTA, and in particular Section 87. And in terms of legal principles, a law enforcement officer has discretionary powers, and the balance against that is the discretionary power which a driver of a vehicle has to contest these measures. So definitely the sector would want a wish list, and through the power of protest, which sadly went violent, a particular now standing in this negotiation is taken. And I would like the Minister of Transport to react about her position as a Minister of Transport, how she sees this, and whether we should interpret her media statements as the actual way as she sees it. And I'm referring to her reference of the authority which a sphere of government has in executing a particular law, whether it is a bylaw or whether it is a provincial law, whether she sees that subject to any other condition.
Honorable Hansinga, are you done, sir? I think I've lost you. Or you have muted yourself for the host. I guess you are done. Thank you very much. Honorable Gomba, over to you, ma'am. Are we still all in the meeting?
Yes, I'm still in the meeting. I'm covered, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Honorable May.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll be very short. The only public transport in South Africa we have is the taxi industry. More than 15 million commuters were transported by taxis per day. Therefore, I'm of the opinion that there must be a better relationship between the taxi industry, national government, and the provinces. The taxi strike delivers severe blow to the economy, and we cannot afford it. The national government and the provinces must act quick to avoid further strikes. It is not the duty of the courts to solve the problems, but national government and the provinces. I have listened to Mr. Mackenzie and is also of the opinion that the way forward looks brighter. Everything must be done to avoid further taxi strikes. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated that you're straight to the point. Honorable Ramadwa, I hope you'll follow the suit. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Let me start by welcoming the reports from the Minister, Honorable Chikunga and Mr. Mackenzie. Honorable Chairperson, the report from Western Cape by Mr. Mackenzie was focusing mostly on statistic and impact of what has happened because of the strike. And you indicated that we must ask questions for clarity because we are still going to reflect as this portfolio committee. But I will also suggest that is it possible that we get a presentation from City of Cape Town before we reflect? Because there was a question by my colleague, Honorable Jobe, Honorable Sitole, about the root cause. So now it means we need to have that presentation from City of Cape Town, because they were the ones who were in conflict with the SANTACO. So we need to have a meeting or to hear them their presentation on the issue of minor and major offenses. I think it's clear in the legislation that which offenses fines are applied and impoundment is applied. So it is clear in the legislation. Though my colleagues, they were debating, and so now we can't debate about this. I will just indicate that that is my understanding. And then, Honorable Chairperson, I also want to check with Mr. Mackenzie. What role did the province play in this whole issue of impounding and the violence? I wanted just to check with the Western Cape province, especially mobility section. Lastly, Chairperson, we see a lot of wrongdoings by the taxi industry, but we see a lot of wrongdoings by the trucks on the road. They block roads, thus impacting on the economy. Should trucks be impounded as well I wanted to check with the minister and also the MEC concerning this, because this is what is happening. You said we must just ask questions for clarity. It's what I'm doing. We'll debate in the committee, but we must have a meeting. We must hear the presentation from City of Cape Town before we have that meeting. Thank you, Chairperson, for now. Chairperson, thank you.
Seems like the chairperson got disconnected or something. To the secretariat of the committee, anything?
We will try and get a chairperson back as soon as possible.
Okay, so in the meantime, we just wait.
Just explain she's load shedding.
Honorable members and everybody in the platform. It's Honorable Ramado. I'm sorry I can't use the video because of connectivity. I'm in load shedding. Honorable Chairperson is on load shedding, and the secretary of the committee will be communicating so that when she will be back to the meeting. For now, she is trying to come back, and the secretary.
But I think we're done. I think we're done. We went through the presentations, and I think we're done. It's really not much more that we can. There aren't any more presentations.
Members, if I may, I did pose questions to the MEC who is in this meeting and may not be in the next one. If you will indulge me, could we ask that he responds to them, please? Thank you.
That's a good idea. Good night.
No, we
Sorry,
can't
just
say
help
good
me.
night.
Should I respond to the questions, members? Just help me.
No, can I just suggest something, members? I think if you look in terms of the rules of the National Assembly, speaks about acting chairpersons, Rule 159. If the chairperson of the committee is absent or unable to perform the functions of the chairperson, the committee must elect another of its members as an acting chairperson. So I think the Secretariat maybe can assist that process so that we can move quickly. Because
we have Chair back now, Mr. Mabena. Let's see if Chair can stay online for another few minutes before we proceed to that option.
Yes, I support what your proposal, Ms. Valerie.
And my apology for that is beyond my control. If I can be just be on speed in terms of the proposal, I didn't hear it at the time. My apology for that, honorable members.
I'm not sure if I can respond here, but I think it was just to say because you were not available, so we wanted to go to Rule 159, but that nullifies that proposal because we are back.
Oh, okay. I guess Honorable Ramadwa has.
I just want to check with you, Chairperson, whether you got my last question where I spoke of trucks. Can I repeat myself? Chairperson?
Points.
I'm not sure if the secretary is the person who can't hear anything that you're saying. Your video has been frozen, and I think we've lost you now. I'm not sure if it would be a good idea to quickly go to 159 and then so that we can move quickly with the meeting, unless if members have appetite to wait again.
Members, I will just confirm with Chair quickly via WhatsApp. If she cannot continue, then we will proceed with the election of an acting chairperson so that the questions can be answered and that the meeting can then conclude, if that's in order.
Honorable members, I have another suggestion or my opinion that how should, because we are facing a load shedding, even now at my side now, the load shedding is just going to come in now. How should, if the presenters, they answer their questions by writing to us as a portfolio committee, because there's a lot of things that we have to do, because to elect another chairperson, actually we're supposed to finish at 8 o'clock. Thank you, honorable honorable members.
Members, as I've indicated, we can obviously get responses from the department. I just requested that the MEC, while he is on this session, seeing as he won't be in the next one, just answers those questions. If we're all fine with it, I'm not sure if the rules allow. Thank you.
The presenters can respond in writing. I support what we have proposed, Honorable Stolle. If the chairperson is not coming out, because the chairperson, Ms. Valerie said she is writing a WhatsApp to her. Let us hear from her. And then if she's not coming, they are going to respond in writing.
No. Honorable members, I think let's be procedural around these issues. I think we have rules of parliament for a reason. Because you see now, we're doing things outside of the rules. I think the first suggestion that the secretary is trying to get back the person, I think it's a fair one. But if then we get someone who's directing the meeting outside of the rules, it becomes problematic because it's unprocedural, and it also puts us, and it creates a precedent which when someone wants to do it tomorrow, colleagues will have a problem with it. But once you allow it once, a precedent is created, which you cannot control in future. So we must always seek to confine ourselves within what the rules say. It doesn't have to be like a laborious issue. I'm sure even from our side, we're not going to nominate a chairperson or an acting chairperson for this meeting. So whoever wants to nominate, we can do that quickly so that we can dispense with the meeting. But we must be within the rules. Thank you.
I think I agree with Honorable Mapena. We therefore have to do as he is suggesting and proposing, because he is actually 100% correct. To assist the meeting to proceed, let me propose the name of Honorable Ramadwa to chair the meeting, so that she summarizes after the responses has been given by the presenters, so that we are doing it correctly as it has been proposed. As I will also suggest that committee secretary will take that place of looking for the name, so that we do it properly. Thanks.
Members, can I continue with the procedure? I spoke to chairperson, she is unable to connect. So in terms of the rules, when the chairperson is unable to chair, then the committee can elect an acting chairperson. May I, in terms of the rules, ask for a nomination from the floor? Ms. Kumalo, I acknowledge your hand. You can proceed.
Thank you, Committee Secretary. I propose that Honorable Ramadwa should take the acting chairperson, so that we proceed with the meeting. Thanks.
Mrs. Ramadwa, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, Ms. Valerie.
Are there any seconders for the nomination?
Yes.
Who am I speaking to right now? I don't see any
Honorable
hand.
Bilankulu.
Thank you, Mr. Bilankulu. Are there any further nominations?
Yes, I'm in support of the nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Bilankulu. Are there any further nominations, members of the Portfolio Committee on Transport? If there are not, then Mrs. Ramadwa, kindly continue with chairing the meeting as an acting chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for having confidence in me to chair this meeting. Colleagues, this meeting was scheduled from 18 hours to 20 hours. Now it's 20 hours, 19 minutes. And some of us, this load shedding is affecting all of us. And we didn't finish off asking for the questions. So I don't know what we can do, because we can't, let me not take decisions. So now I was the last one to ask questions for clarity and also speaking. So I don't know whether there was anybody after me or not, because I was not sharing. So I would suggest that we end this meeting, because we were supposed to have finished at 20 hours. Now it's 20 minutes past 20 hours. And the other thing, we don't know whether there were other people who want to speak or not, so that those who made presentations, they will respond in writing, and we end this meeting. Colleagues. because now the chairperson can't because of load shedding, because things that she can't avoid.
Honorable Ramada, I think, can I say something?
Let me check the hands. I have seen Noluthando, Nontando Noluchungu, Fikile Kumalo, Honorable Mabena, and Honorable Golding, in that order.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I want to propose that seeing that people are here, allow them to respond, allow the province to respond, and the national to respond. And then that's the end of the meeting. Why must people go and write whilst they are here and we're able to resolve everything here? Thank you.
Honorable Kumalo.
Thank you, Chairperson. Actually covered. I was going to say exactly what the previous speaker has been spoken to, because people are already prepared with their responses. Why are we allowing them to go back and start writing? Can we just allow them to give responses so that we end the meeting? Thanks, Chair.
Comrade, Honorable Mabena.
I'm covered. I think everyone supports what Honorable Golding was at pains to say, that people that are here that would not be in the meeting, can they respond? So I think all colleagues supported things.
Okay, thank you very much for that decision, that we agree as a meeting that we allow the presenters to respond. I will allow Mr. Mackenzie to respond, and then after that it will be the minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Chairperson, and I'm also going to give my officials just to assist as well. Can I just make a quick comment? I think what happened here now demonstrated exactly how the rule of law should apply. This meeting did not decide to make me chairperson of this meeting because it's not in the rules of national parliament. A member of the standing committee was elected and you know the acting chairperson. That's how laws and rules work. I can't now decide because I have electricity, I have my video screen works, and I have airtime or data. I should chair the committee. The rules of law are there for a reason, and we all must abide by it. Same goes for SANTACO. Same goes for any other user of the road. The rules of law is very clear, and the standing committee has now clearly demonstrated how the rules of law must always be consistently applied. It doesn't matter who or what is in this meeting. The national minister is here, but you didn't make the national minister the chairperson of this meeting. A member of the committee became a member of this standing committee. That is how the rule of law works. And this standing committee has now demonstrated exactly what we all believe in. The rule of law is applied to anyone, regardless of who or what you are, whether you are in the minibus taxi industry, the car industry, the trucking industry. And that has just been demonstrated. So thank you very much. Honorable Keta Mabala, you actually made a very important point. You said, sometimes they bump into people every day. How is it become acceptable in our country that we accept people to bump into people every day and some get away with it? That is not the rule of law. I'm going to ask Deirdre Bartman, Farrell Payne, Mark to respond to some of the questions about infringements, etc. But I need to respond to Honorable Noletsunga, which is exactly what I said is the way forward. The minibus taxi industry needs to be subsidized. The minibus taxi industry is not going to go away and should not go away. And that discussion has been had since 1994, but nothing concrete has been done for the minibus taxi industry. And that is the core of their frustration. And one should really, one thing that the Sixth Parliament can get right, the Standing Committee, the National Minister is working on a program to finally subsidize the minibus taxi industry. Our Blue Dot program has demonstrated it, and my official will give some more details around it. I agree 100% with the Honorable May's sentiments. There is a way forward. There is a way forward as to how we can do it and how we can ensure that the minibus taxi, which is a core industry in this country, should work with us and how we can make sure people get to work safely. I also do want to say, I do not want to preempt the outcome of the legal opinion of our lawyers. I've seen my national colleagues has given their interpretation. I deliberately did not put our interpretation on, because lawyers can give you different opinions, as we all know as lawmakers. So I didn't put our interpretation on. I've seen now they've put their interpretation on, which I've seen in the letter that the minister has sent to me. We'll provide our legal interpretation in writing to the minister, and obviously we will have to decide on the way forward, and hopefully we'll find common ground on the way forward. But as the law currently standing in, that's how we have been interpreted for all these years, and this is the first time it has come up as a challenge. So I'm going to hand over to, Honorable Ramatsu as chairperson. What role did the province play? I was the lead negotiator in this on behalf of the province, the chairperson of the task team, and we had worked with, when the national minister came down from Johannesburg, she joined our meetings. We even met with the Premier's house the one evening in trying to resolve these matters, work the daily meeting with the city of Cape Town in trying to resolve these matters. So our role has been the overall coordinator with the minibus taxi industries from day one, helping them get formalized, because that was one of the first things I said. We have to get the minibus taxi industry formalized and working with the private sector. And so that is the role that we played during that period. I'm going to hand over to our officials. They also have load-setting pressure, so I do not want to keep up any further. And if there's any other questions, we'll respond in writing. Thank you, Deirdre.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Chairperson, through you, I won't put my camera on because of load shedding. But just to address the issue of the Blue Dot program, very quickly, it was a program that was aimed at addressing many of the core issues that was discussed here tonight. All honourable members were correct when they stated that, it is the largest carrier of our passengers, both in the country, but more specifically in our province. The percentage that's carried by the minibus taxi industry is just over 70%. So at this present moment, whether we agree or disagree, it is the largest carrier of our passengers. It has become the backbone over the last 10 to 15 years, and it may take equally as long to address some of the rail issues so that rail can take its rightful place. So this particular program actually came about as a result of what we did during COVID. So during COVID, we had a Red Dot program with all the stipulations, or in terms of COVID restrictions, we had to move our essential staff, and we needed to get COVID patients to hospitals. So the minibus taxi industry was contracted, they formalized to do this particular service. Now, moving to Blue Dot, it is an incentive program to specifically change behavior of both drivers and operators, Chairperson. And it is something that addresses a lot of the core issues facing this particular mode. We must remember that in our country, unfortunately, it is the only mode that doesn't get any kind of real support from government. But it also, at the same time, has to compete with subsidized services, specifically in the province, something like Golden Arrow and Metro Rail. So you have to compete and keep your operational costs down, but you don't get the necessary support. So what we've experienced with Blue Dot was just shy of 50% reduction in speeding events, and equally so in harsh events. So harsh events is harsh braking, harsh cornering, all the things industry generally gets impounded for. We've seen this dramatic reduction in those events in a 14-month period. But something that is really quite impressive, that over this 14-month period, we saw no events of conflict, with the exception of one incident over a week, and that was isolated to the Amapela issues, but there was no conflict issues in 14 months within industry. So that really does demonstrate that when supported, when formalized, providing the support to industry can change behavior. Unfortunately, honorable member that posed this question about Blue Dot, the reason it was stopped after 14 months is an issue of not having the funding to continue it. We've had many endorsements by private sector. Our Cape Chamber of Business endorsed the program. So there was a lot of endorsement by the program, but unfortunately we didn't have the funding. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Mackenzie and the team. Yeah. Honorable Minister, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Can I first request Titi Matabata to respond on questions and some questions, and then I'll come after him.
DDG. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thanks, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. There was a question of what is major and what is minor and who decides. Now, I think when we indicated earlier on, we said that that has been our challenge also from national. And that's why we said, ultimately said, the law should guide us. Because that categorization is unfortunately not there in the NLTA. It's also not there in the National Road Traffic Act. So we cannot sit in a meeting and based on, say, Mukonyama or Makawata or whoever, say, we now decide this is minor, this is major, this is minor, this is major. That should be carefully done and be guided by law. However, the law, our law does not have a vacuum, Honorable Chair. There's no vacuum. The NRTA has sort of listed almost all the infringements. Not only that, clarified some of them in regulations and provided the penalty regime for each one of them. Unfortunately, I need to indicate that NRTA does not have impoundment, not in a single provision or section in Israel. Now, we really don't want to be in a serious collision in terms of this. We know there are those infringements that are could be categorized as major and could lead to, but in all of this, we need to be guided by the law. And if there's no law, we need to make the law. So the law is there in the majority of these cases, if not all of them. And that's why we say, what does the law say? But Chair, I think, again, the law is meant to be unambiguous and clear and simple. But if that was the case in all instances, I'm definitely sure we wouldn't be having so many lawyers in the country and judges who preside and adjudicate over legal issues. And that's why we say, let's get the legal process to guide us going forward. Even where we define the interpretation, there are processes and remedies, even in the judicial system, to assist all of us so that we do the right thing. Yes, we could have been implementing certain things, but it's in all cases. You can do things for your lifetime. And on the 90th birthday, it gets litigated. And then the court decides, or the legal system and processes decide otherwise. So I don't think that one, we could say, continue something that we doubt. We need to find certainty. And that's why lawyers are there. And I'm not even saying that the legal opinion in itself is exhaustive, is conclusive. No, we subject this to legal test. And the legal test in terms of our constitution are the courts. So that is why we say everything else needs to be guided by that. I think this question is just consume quite a number of issues that were indicated. But at the core of this is what is minor and what is major. And if we're here to debate and sit, we'll come with different interpretations depending on who speaks as to what is major and what is minor. We can safely say at national, there could be some light when we start to implement ARTO, because there you start to have a categorization of what are infringements and what are offenses. So that process will also is what we are looking at and is guiding us. Now there's the issue around the discretion of 87. Of course, yes, the 87 gives a very wide discretion to traffic officers on the road. I think we also mentioned it in the presentation. But fortunately, again, that discretion should be exercised with care and reasonableness, and it should be fair. And there are also remedies. This PAJAS Section 3 that says an administrative act should be fair and just. But it's also the Constitution Section 33 also confirms those kind of issues. So white as it is, it should be exercised with care. That's all we are really saying. And what is care? I think also again put to legal test, it could be tested. The national standards are not intended, Honorable Chair and Honorable Minister. The national standards that we say we need to be looking at. For obvious reasons, if you have introduced legislation for uniform application, you need to have uniform rules and guidelines and guidance. So it is not intended to encroach in the authority and or legal authority of any other sphere. It just says this act that we have introduced, developed, and have passed through the National Assembly, and to an extent that it applies to whoever. This is how it shall be implemented. It is not dictating at all. It is providing guidance. Because part of the responsibilities in terms of that act is then that we should also monitor its implementation at national. So it is not, it is really, on the contrary, it is our efforts to clear uncertainties and ambiguities, but also for the rest of the country. It's just so that you don't have different interpretation and different applications depending on where it is being implemented. We've done that on several occasions with other provisions of the same act, by the way, in terms of providing guidance with regard to uniform application and implementation. Chair, I think, Honorable Chair, others were mainly comments. The main elephant in the room. Chair, we are at the department finalizing the subsidy policy. And probably it will have universal coverage in terms of who will benefit and so on. The main aim there and the key principle is that we're targeting the user irrespective of the mode. And that's the first part. But I should also mention that the issue around subsidization in the main is not really a national issue alone, because contracting authorities are provinces and municipalities. So We have studied and continue to study and continue to learn from even the other contracting authorities. And from the Western Cape in particular, we have learned a lot through the Blue Dot. And that is something that we are also studying in terms of whether at national it could be something we could adopt. The key consideration would be affordability of the program. The colleagues that work with MEC Mackenzie knows that there are discussions at the technical level around that. Why allow SANTACO to decide what is minor and what is major? I think we've dealt with that part. That whether it's SANTACO, whether it's everybody, whether it's Mukonyam, whether it's Matawata, we need to avoid bringing those individual interests into the space, but be guided by the law as it stands. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think, there was a question. Do you impound trucks if they block the road? I don't remember such an instance. When somebody obstructs and disturbs the roads, for example, even in a private vehicle, what happens is that the person gets arrested and then pays a fine. You can even demobilize a vehicle, but not necessarily take it into custody because that is not provided for in terms of the National Road Traffic Act. I think that is the key issue here, is that for almost all the infringements in the National Road Traffic Act, empowerment is not there as a penalty. Empowerment is only provided for in terms of the NLTA, Section 87. And then it says no operating license and operating outside the conditions of the operating license. Hence, I said it is now these conditions, not of the Western Cape alone, but throughout. It's now these conditions that we need to guide their development. Where they are not there, or if they are there, we need to test their intravenous nature vis-a-vis the intentions and the purpose of the NLTA. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Chairperson, before the Minister responds, is MEC Mackenzie here. There's still one question from Honorable Lotsutsumga that one of my technical officials wants to answer, that she asked about the operating licenses, if you don't mind, before the Minister speaks.
Okay.
Mark, you can answer the question.
Yeah. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, Minister, I also have load shedding in my area and my battery is running very low. But I think the main point that I want to make is that we're all talking about violations of operating license conditions. But the reality is that the majority of the vehicles that's in the pound at the moment are therefore operating without a valid operating license. And I think one of the honorable members mentioned or maybe a vermin that there's a backlog in respect of operating licenses, or SANTACO presented that as one of the issues. So I just want to categorically state that, you know, in the Western Cape, there is no operating license backlog. We're currently busy with the City of Cape Town. They've introduced a special regulatory process to balance supply and demand and to make sure that, you know, if there's a demand for services, that demand is met by legal vehicles. So we are in the process of doing that with the City of Cape Town. But certainly in terms of turnaround times, I think we have the best, generally accepted that we have the best turnaround times in the country in respect of operating licenses. The law allows us to dispose of applications within 60 days, but I think we try to dispose of it between 45 and 50 days. So certainly from our side, there is no operating license backlog in Western Cape. Let me also just, Minister and Honourable Chairperson, comment on the conditions on operating licenses. The wording in section 57.5, it says the entity granting the operating license may do so subject to any conditions determined by it. That's not inconsistent with the Act. So,
sorry, I'm sorry to interject you. I thought maybe you have answered. Now you are answering what was the Department of Transport answering. So now you are getting in. It's a new thing that you are saying because of what was raised by the department. I thought maybe when you were making presentation, you will present what was asked.
Yeah.
Mr. Mackenzie.
Yes. No, I don't want to take in the outcome of the legal opinion.
That was not answered, that you are answering, not answering what was said by the department.
Yeah, Honorable Chairperson, let me then conclude with that. So just to say that we don't have an operating license backlog in the Western Cape.
Thank you. If you don't have a backlog, operating backlog, I think you can also submit the statistic of what you are saying concerning, because if there was a question concerning backlog, now when you're answering saying there is no backlog, you can also submit to the committee to show that there is no backlog. Thank you. Over to you, Minister, after the DDG has spoken.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me also welcome the questions and comments made by Honorable Mabena. Makes an important comment in that what is the status of the list that is being compiled, which I think DDG Matabata responded to, Mokonyama responded to say, as a matter of fact, it doesn't have any legal standing because there isn't any law that says you will say a minor, major, and therefore I impound you because we've agreed. It can't be like that. I think therefore it's a process for us that has no legal standing as a matter of fact. And I think it is correct to say if we were to be taken to court on those matters, we would definitely be found wanting because there isn't any legal process that allows us to do that. So yes, indeed, it's a problem that I want to believe that we need to look at. But you then further asked the question as to whether arriving in Cape Town, I had one meeting, and I think MEC Mackenzie in his presentation, and even as he was responding to question, he did respond to that. Even before I flew to Cape Town, I had called MEC Mackenzie. At the time, they were together with the MMC for mobility in the city, MEC Rob Quinten. They were together engaging with SANTACO, and they briefed me as to what was happening. And I requested that as soon as the meeting is over, they brief me. So when the strike started and they were engaging the SANTACO, the meeting that in his presentation indicated that it could then collapsed. They briefed me about that. So we were in close communication over even before I arrived in Cape Town. When I arrived in Cape Town, of course, remember there had been collapse of communication. I started at SANTACO and I explained as to why. When I went to meet with them as government, we then sat together and discussed, and they knew that I was coming there. As a matter of fact, they appreciated the fact that SANTACO was now willing to come back to negotiate. And after that, we had other meetings, as I think MEC has indicated, even in the House of the Premier, initially ourselves, and then in the House of the Premier with the mayor coming. So we were in a number of meetings. We couldn't just mention one in every meeting, but quite a number of meetings. Even after that, we were in communication over the phone each time. And then lately, there's a letter that he referred to that I also referred to that I wrote to him. He responded immediately to the letter. So we know exactly what is happening. So it's not been the issue. Even when we met with SANTACO, where we thought we need to caucus as government, we did that. And we caucused as government. If we disagreed, we'll disagree then and so on, and we caucus. So we understood that we're government and we're dealing with the matter. Of course, there would be areas, a number of them, where we disagree. Like, of course, the very fact that we still believe that law is law, it binds us, it constrains us, all of us, whether we are legislature, whether we are executive, or we are operators, we are constrained by the law, and anything that we do it doesn't matter how emotional it might sound at a particular time, but we are constrained by the law. Otherwise, we wouldn't. Member Ramadwa asked an important question to say, equally, trucks do block our roads. If you speak about the national road, which is N3, when you block that road, you're actually blocking the economy in South Africa. On the basis of that, can then municipalities or KZN, as it issues operating licenses to those trucks, can therefore include that you block the road, we're going to impound the truck? As a matter of fact, it doesn't have those powers because that is not in any of the legislations. So they can't do it, despite the fact that when they block the road and the driving that happens on that road, when they take all the routes on Harris Smith, for instance, to the extent that sometimes they face oncoming traffic, but you can't then say we therefore now coming up with regulations or with conditions that are outside the law. So I think that question for me was important because it says, despite whatever, we still are constrained by the law. And the National Road Traffic Act, the objective of it, it says, is to provide for road traffic matters which shall apply uniformly throughout the Republic and for matters connected therewith. Uniformly throughout the Republic, not just in provinces, not in the Western Cape only, but everywhere in the Republic of South Africa, it will apply. And as the DDG has indicated, unfortunately, for any violation, for any infringement or offense that is in the Road Traffic Act, there isn't a sanction which is impoundment. Now, that is what is the problem here, to say, we're adding an infringement. What is this? A sanction on something that is legislated and it does not carry an impoundment. It's legislated already. Chairperson, I will be the first to want people who cause accidents on the road to be hung. I'll be the first. I can't, because the Act doesn't allow me to do that. So it's as all that, and the issue is the conditions in the operating license. They cross-reference to the NRTA. They do, and that those they carry the impounding, and that is why some of the vehicles are impounded. Now, when Western Cape, for instance, I'm sorry that I didn't write the name, but the very last speaker says the majority of taxis that are impounded for operating without operating licenses. Then, of course, that is in terms of the NLTA, and that cannot be questioned because in that case, they will therefore be acting in terms of the law. And therefore that cannot be questioned. Of course, it will be the tax industry will say, but we are operating, and when we apply for operators, it takes forever for us to get the operating licenses. He says there's no backlog. That's another matter that I think we can look into outside. But just if you take what he's just said, then of course that is in terms of the NLTA. If you operate without the operating license, then of course the car can actually be impounded. That is allowed. And if you operate outside the conditions of the operating license that are in regard and within the NLTA and the purpose of the NLTA, then of course that can then be the conditions for impounding. But for anything that happens on the road, then it's NRTA, anything on the road. And NRTA applies to all of us equally. It applies to the driver of a truck, driver of a bus, driver of whatever, and everything else. And therefore, the conditions for which you get punished, they are the same to all of us. If you overtake, whether it's a private car or public transport or whatever, you overtake on a barrier line, then you can be punished for that. You cross a robot, you can be punished for that, and so on and so forth. And that applies to all South Africans in terms of the National Road Traffic Act on the road, of course. If my car is unroadworthy, but I've parked it at my home, nobody can come and arrest me or say this car is unroadworthy. But as soon as I take that car onto the road, then of course, then I can be stopped and I can be fined, jail, and so on and so forth. There is now a sanction for that. So I just wanted to say we are constrained by the law. If we think that for public transport, maybe because people that operate public transport, be they bus, be they whatever, they carry the majority of South Africans, as we have said. Then and we think that if we don't impound those cars when they do whatever they do, as it has been mentioned, that probably is weak enough. Then it means we have got to amend the legislation. We may then say, oh, okay, there's weakness in this legislation, then we amend the legislation, but we can't amend it in a task team. That is our view on the matter. But I just want to really maybe to thank the MEC for transport mobility in the Western Cape, MEC Mackenzie, because I think throughout this he has demonstrated a lot of maturity and taking this thing to his heart. The mere fact that he is here today. We were with him in the offices of SANTACO, sent by the MEC, by the Premier. We've worked this together, and I think that it should be commended. I just want to say that, and then Mr. Golden's hand is up. He actually asked the question to say, the province is implementing its legislation. As a matter of fact, it's not even the legislation, it is the conditions that we're talking about. The operating license, operating permit, that sets conditions that cross-reference to the NRTA. And it adds an impoundment as a sanction. And probably we may have to agree quicker that maybe we take this matter, we test it in a court of law so that we know as to who is right and who is wrong. Because I think that was one other question that was asked by him to say, what if the legal opinion, or I think it must have been Mabena, what if the legal opinion is in conflict with the legal opinion that we have as national government? I just want to say this, when we were there, the Premier called the senior counsel for the province. And the senior counsel actually agreed that there are two conditions for which you can impound the car. That is now the Western Cape, not ours. There are two. One, it is the vehicle, the minibus or any public transport is operating without the operating license, or two, you are not in compliance with the conditions of the operating license, which are in terms of the NLTA. And I think I just want to emphasize that point in terms of the NLTA, not just anything, but the NLTA. So they must be in the spirit and letter of the NLTA. So that is the whole issue around this matter. We may, as quickly as possible, agree that we maybe test this matter in a court of law so that we find a solution to this matter. And we can do that. In fact, that's what we think we need to be doing, to test this matter in a court of law, to say to the court, explain to us who is right here. Can we impound cars for infringements that are catered for in the National Road Traffic Act, and they don't carry impoundment as a sanction? Can we do it? If we do, can be on the basis of the operating license? Can anybody sit somewhere and come up with operating license and then, of course, add sanctions for any other public transport or any other transport? Can that be done? Is it correct? Can it be done? I think I just wanted to add that. Chairperson, we thank you for this opportunity. We say these things knowing the issues and the problems, and we as the DDG has indicated, we already are processing the policy on the subsidization of public transport. And we want to believe that what we are doing will cover the taxi industry once and for all, because we're now targeting the user, not the service provider, as it has been the case. As a matter of fact, even the bus industry, we've not been able to subsidize all buses. Many of the small bus companies are without subsidies. So it's not only the taxi industry because of the limited resources. But if we then target the user and not the service provider, we believe that that will be able to cover quite a number of other people. And I think I just want to say that I wouldn't definitely want to go to issues related to rail services, because of course we can say a lot about that. And I think we're going to have an opportunity to appear before the SCOPA on the same matters on rail. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Colleagues, the meeting said after a response, we must end the meeting. It's what was said before we nominate a person who must chair. So before that, I will ask Ms. Valerie if we are having any announcement.
Chair, I've got my hand up for a while. I've just got a request, not a question. If you'll entertain
I
that.
thought maybe it's
an old one.
Old hand.
It was just a request.
We have agreed in the meeting that they are going to respond and end the meeting.
Yeah. Ma'am, it's a request.
And we have given everybody chance to ask questions. Do you want to respond?
It's not a question, it's just a request. The ministers indicated that they are looking at the subsidization of the industry, and the MEC has indicated that the Blue Dot program has run and is not ended. Can I, through you, Chair, request that the closeout report on the Blue Dot program and its operation then be forwarded to us? That is all. Thank you.
What you are raising, Mr. Golding, I thought maybe you are responding. Now you are asking questions. We have given people a chance, members to ask questions, and it was that time wherein you were supposed to ask the questions. Now you are bringing the questions after the response. I'm no longer going to ask the minister to respond in what you have requested.
Ma'am, I'm asking for a copy of the report. That's it. There's no further action.
Okay. Honorable members, we have come to the end of our meeting, and I'll request Ms. Valerie if we're having any announcements.
Just a quick announcement. We managed to get the chairperson back, and Mrs. Ramadwa, let's give chairperson a chance to make a quick closing remark while we still have her online. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valerie. Chairperson.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ramadwa.
Over to you.
Thank
they
you.
said you must make remarks.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Chairperson, for holding the fort, as well as the patience that honorable members, both the minister and MEC and everybody else on the platform, to be patient with us. Having said that, Chair, one will request that both the minister as well as the MEC in their responses, because the questions were related to what they would have presented to us in writing, that if they can follow up in some of the responses in writing, we can highly appreciate that. To also request, as the honorable member have requested, if the closing Blue Drop report is ready, can be shared just for interest's sake, as well as that without prolonging, I know that we agreed that we'll stay on the platform. It seems like we do have a connectivity. To say that the what do you call it, the MANCO should sit not later than Sunday, so that on Monday we can circulate as such as a date within reasonable time to have an engagement with the city of Cape Town, so that members then, when you resume back from the constitutive period, they are able to respond, and will urge that they do respond. And I think it's better that we have, in our previous meetings, agreed that when it arises, we can have such meetings, even at a portfolio committee with ourselves. The chairperson, those are the two announcements, and appreciating, and once more, the respect that both the national government, a department led by the minister, as well as the MEC, have accorded to us. Is a true intergovernmental relations in terms of all spheres of government, to ensure that our citizens' eco-social capabilities and mobility, and those ones who are interested, are not worse off by our application of the laws that we make at any given time. The rest, then, we will follow also the roadmap or the program, which will be augmented by the program that we had already approved. Will also take care of the issues that honorable members have raised in terms of other stakeholders that have been omitted. And I'm happy that, as if they know that some of us will be disturbed or interrupted unceremoniously so by the load shedding, that we will also reflect on that and MANCO, and then communicate with the honorable members. And I'm sure that ever positive response, they will do that. If there's a need for a quick meeting before, then we confirm the program as it were. Thank you very much, Chair. And once more, thank you very much to everybody who took time to be in this meeting and infringing in their family time. Thank you very much, Chair. If you are, then I can close the meeting, can I?
Yes, close the meeting, Chairperson.
The meeting stands adjourned. We'll communicate if there is anything that will communicate through our channel. Ms. Valerie should do that. Thank you very much. Take care. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Long live the chair.